Let's begin now. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this event at the Central Asia Program at GW. We have today the unique opportunity to discuss with His Excellencies Varhabov, Ambassador of Uzbekistan in the US and Canada. And I wanted to thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for being available for us for this kind of very direct and frank discussion on the situation in Uzbekistan. We are really grateful for that. Let me say a few words about Ambassador Vakhabov, who has a long career in Uzbekistan. He worked at the Uzbek National Security Council for several years. He was the director of the Institute for Strategic and Interregional Research, which is one of the main think tanks in Tashkent. And then he joined the leadership team of the Foreign Ministry in 2013, and he was one of the 4 deputy ministers of Foreign Affairs at this time. And in 2015, he was promoted first Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs. And in 2017, he joined us here in Washington, D.C. And we are really grateful to be able to engage with the Uzbek embassy on a more regular basis. So, Mr. Ambassador, thank you so much for accepting to discuss with us today. What I propose to do is that to make the discussion more interactive and give the floor to our audience also, is that we discuss around several topics. So first, the situation, the kind of political economic reform aspect of what is happening in Uzbekistan. In a second step, the pandemics and the current lockdown. And then as a third topics, it would be great to discuss Uzbek-American relations. So what I would like to do is to give you the floor first to discuss the kind of new Uzbekistan, the Mirziyoyev Uzbekistan, and then after I will collect some questions. We will have some Q&A time, and then we will move to the pandemics and then to the Uzbek-American relations. Would that work for you?
Yes, absolutely.
Perfect. Well, thank you once again for being here today, and I give you the floor.
So, dear Marlene, participants of today's webinar, ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to share with the recent developments in Uzbekistan. So, and in fact, we are meeting not in a so traditional way that we have used to do, as COVID-19 has been leaving its footprint in all areas of our life. So, indeed, almost 4 years passed since the new administration came to power, and 1 year left before the presidential elections start. And I think it's the right time to look at what has been done in a new Uzbekistan and what should be done in years to come, as well as to look through the challenges my country has been facing too. And as many of you are aware, Uzbekistan has become a home for an immense number and scale transformations. A new stage of development my country decisively entered, has no exits back or reversing options. So the only and sole aim is very clear and simple, so well known. But it's the core of what we are doing for. To make well-being of the people of Uzbekistan better today than it was yesterday, at least till we reach top 30 economies. So yes, ambitious, but I believe it is what we are striving for. So Marlene, as I go over these important issues, I would like ask that all of you think about any questions or comments you may have, so we can have a lively question and answer session when I conclude my remarks. So first of all, I would like to underscore that the president envisions Uzbekistan transformed into a thriving modern state, an example for the region, perhaps for the entire globe, with a government accountable to its citizens and respectful of their rights, with constructive relations with its neighbors, and with an open economy that welcomes and protects foreign investments. So the priority, as we have outlined in our strategy and further development of Uzbekistan. So none of these reforms will be easy. So we understand it clearly, but all of them are essential. So, and as you are well aware, so and over the last years, so we have revised the work of all ministries and agencies, so created new institutions to implement effective and transparent system of public administration capable of protecting the rights of citizens. So, and in this regard, just wanted to point out that, and it's worth noting that the first law adopted after the president took his office was anti-corruption law, which strengthened criminal penalties for conviction of officials, corruption in the country. So beside that, in order to minimize the bureaucracy and ease the process of government citizen interaction, so we are actively enhancing so-called e-government tools and single window systems. And I believe you know what I'm talking about. So another key area, so we have identified as a core component is to ensure independence of judiciary and strengthens rights of citizens and their access to justice. So, and several decrees have been adopted over the last years aimed at ensuring the independence of the judiciary and strengthen the rights of citizens and their access to justice. Imposition of sanctions for illegal interfering with into the judicial actions. So with respect to what we have achieved so over the last 4 years in terms of liberalizing the economy, I just wanted to underscore so the biggest and most acute challenge that the task of current government is to make people's well-being better, as I had mentioned above. So therefore, so we opened the economy, encouraging more foreign direct investments, decreasing government's role. So far, so we have first good results. FDI flow increased almost 4 times last year. So for the first time, Uzbekistan so received an international credit rating and successfully placed 1 billion worth of bonds on the global financial market. And beside that, for the first time in our history, in 10 years, I would say, our country's position in the credit risk rating for the OECD has been improved as well. With respect to the latest developments prior to the pandemic began to spread across the globe are the parliamentary elections. So, and as you have all eyewitnessed, the new political environment is shaping out in the country, allowing us to raise the current democratic reforms to a higher level. If any of you are familiar with elections in Uzbekistan, so you could have clearly noticed the vivid difference of the last parliamentary elections from the rest we had since independence. So, and in the elections, as you have all noticed, so the struggle between the candidates from all involved parties, political parties, took place in an atmosphere of healthy political competition. So during the debates which were broadcast live, so party representatives deeply analyzed the programs of their opponents, openly sounded criticism, different, sometimes even opposite points of view regarding the solution of urgent problems in the country. So with respect to our foreign policy, another key pillar that the current administration strategy envisions was about good neighborliness policies that that the current president so has started implementing in the region of Central Asia. So in this regard, just wanted to underscore that we are committed to reinforce our open, very pragmatic and deeply thought foreign policy, policy that meets our national interests. So, and as I have mentioned, since the current administration started implementing neighbors first policy in the region of Central Asia, so we have changed our approach even to neighboring Afghanistan, that is becoming an integral part of the entire Central Asia. So we have understood the uselessness of fencing ourselves from Afghanistan. So we stopped looking at it as a source of problems. So we begin to realize that Afghanistan Afghanistan presents a unique opportunity for Central Asia to have the shortest access to seaports and energy markets in South Asia. By the way, yesterday, the first meeting of the working group that has been set up within the framework of the trilateral cooperation, the US, Uzbekistan, Afghanistan, was held. And the meeting that was joined by more than 20 representatives of 3 governments. And we've been discussing how the opening Central Asia could bring the prosperity to the entire region, and of course including neighboring Afghanistan, that we perceive as an integral part of Central Asia. So, and the current, I believe I will have a chance to make the comments regarding Uzbek-American relations that are still growing nowadays. And so with respect to the latest developments, so just wanted to point out that the recent visit of the DFC CEO Adam Boyle, so along with Ambassador Zalmay Khalilzad to Uzbekistan, went very productive and promising. So the itinerary was full of meetings with high-level local officials. And actually that resulted in tangible outcomes. So Marlene, dear participants, so 4 years ago we began the crucial work of deep modernization and renewal of our country. So and we have done much of this work in a short period of time. However, so we admit that challenges are still remaining, and the biggest, again, in my understanding, when I'm even tortured, taking so many questions addressed to me regarding the biggest threat to the new Uzbekistan, regarding the remaining challenges that we are facing to. I would answer and again reiterate that the biggest one is related to the implementation of our laws, especially at the regional level. So both the president and the cabinet of ministers have a very strong top-down message that the human rights violations and abrogation of the rule of law so will not be tolerated regardless the title or the position of perpetrator. But there are still some isolated incidents which are not systematic in nature, I think. So along with this challenge, so we are facing to other problems that we're still trying to find out proper solutions, and these remaining challenging goals in front of the new government, of course, aim at reducing unemployment to at least 7%. And you know well, so nowadays, more than 700,000 young people, so under the age of 30, are entering the local labor market annually. So, and in this regard, and again, given the fact that the COVID-19 has disruptively hit the economy, so this number, I mean, the number of unemployment in Uzbekistan increased by almost 20%. So, and the current administration is working hard on reducing this number, as I mentioned, up to at least 7%. So another challenge is mostly related to the government's commitment to create jobs for at least 500,000 Uzbekistanis per year. So with respect to the economy itself, so increasing the country's GDP from $60 billion to $100 billion is another tough issue that the current government is working on. So and of course the inflation in terms of economic challenges that we are facing too remains a hot topic among all involved members of the current administration. So and reducing inflation to 5% and increase consumer production so is another task that we need to work on. So Marlene, so let me stop here, and I once again thank you for today's video conference call, and I wish you success in your responsible work to further strengthen the multifaceted cooperation. So with Uzbekistan in particular. So so I stand ready to take the questions that the audience and our distinguished guests might be interested to get.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much, Mr. Ambassador, for this overview. And we already have a lot of questions coming on, so let me try to organize them by topics. We had one key question about the potential for Uzbekistan to join the Eurasian Economic Union as a full member, and how do you see what would be the positive aspect of joining, what can be more negative? So that's one of the first question we had, and then I will go to more kind of even more regional Central Asian question, and then things happening inside Uzbekistan. So if you could give us first your feedback on joining the Eurasian Economic Union.
Marlene, thank you so much for this question. So as you may know, just more than a month ago, so the National Assembly of Uzbekistan has approved the government's decision to be an observer within the framework of the Eurasian Economic Union. Based on this decision issued by the Parliament, so we let the Eurasian Economic Union headquarters about our intent to be an observer. At this regional organization. So with respect to the membership, I mean full-fledged membership of Uzbekistan to the Eurasian Economic Union. I should note that currently, we are not considering this issue within the government. But at the same time, just wanted to let the audience know about our current priorities. So as I have mentioned, we are economically pragmatic in our foreign policy, and obviously choosing partners based on our needs, interests, and priorities. So in this regard, joining the WTO remains the utmost priority for us. as you may know, like a couple of weeks ago, so the fourth meeting of the working group that has been set up in early of 90s, so was held in Geneva. So we've been discussing so the key provisions of the MFU on the trade regime that we expect to be signed, hopefully very soon. And before the working groups meeting held, so we've been closely working with the key members of the WTO and trying to answer to more than 300 questions that we've been provided. So with respect to the with respect to joining the Eurasian Economic Union, so just wanted to know that the trade turnover between Uzbekistan and the Eurasian Economic Union nations had, thanks to bilateral agreements, increased by more than 50%, and up to almost $10 billion, which is equivalent to around 30% of Uzbekistan's foreign trade. So in this, but the decision anyway. So the decision why we've started working with the Eurasian Economic Union as an observer is mostly related to, again, to those so many challenging issues that the current government is facing to trade, labor, labor migrants, and of course transit shipments. So these are key dimensions that our decision was based on.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ambassador. We have several other questions, in fact, really a good number of them, asking how do you envision the role of civil society, both domestic civil society and international non-profit organization in the reforms, and several people in among the participants who are working in this sector as asking about any plans from the government for making registration of NGO less bureaucratic. People are still complaining that it's too difficult for NGOs, both local and international, to register in the country. And of course, that's an issue the government has been working on since several years, but it would be good to have your feedback on that.
Marlene, thank you so much for this question. So again, from my own perspective, so as an ambassador of Uzbekistan to the United States, just would like to make some comments on NGO registration issues that has been a headache for decades since actually 2006, when many of US-based NGOs that have been working closely with Uzbekistan left our country. But today...
this might answer your question. There are 195 UN recognized countries.
Alexa, stop. I'm sorry. She's my best friend. Since 2016, so when the new government came to power, so issues related to the NGO registration have been changed. What I mean in particular, so in 2018, so the first American NGO known as American Councils, that is dealing with international educational programs globally, so has been registered, actually being the first American NGO that has been allowed to enter and resume its operation in Uzbekistan since 2006. So beside that, another NGO, again, US-based NGO that has been recently registered within the Justice Ministry is known as Mercy Corps. So that was defined by the United States Department of Agriculture as a key implementer Food for Education program that will be implemented in the region of Karakalpakstan along with the Surkhandarya region. So, and the total amount of the fundings that have been allocated by the US government, in particular to this project, is almost to 24, if my mind doesn't change me, $24 million. So, and we're talking about enriched, nutrition-enriched food that the preschool educational facilities will be provided. So within the 5 years to come. So so beside that, I should also note that just recently, so we have informed the Department of State, in particular the US Embassy in Tashkent, that the Justice Ministry stands ready to register 2 more NGOs. And I'm talking about NGOs that is called RTI, that has been authorized by the Department of State as an implementer of the American Council's-led educational programs in Uzbekistan. You know well, last year, so the USAID and the Minister for Public Education have signed an agreement on $50 million project that will be primarily so meant for the public education purposes. So a fourth NGO that is waiting for its registration is known as a Windrock International, that will be dealing with TIP, trafficking in persons issues. I can assure you so more NGOs so to be registered, and of course our key purpose, I would say key demand, when I'm even interacting with the representatives of all NGOs that are looking for Uzbekistan and looking for those opportunities to help the current government to implement ongoing reforms, should meet our own requirements. So requirements that I have mentioned, needs that I have underscored above, creating jobs, so increasing the opportunities for education, so improving our healthcare system, so and of course reducing the level of inflation in the country, so creating jobs I have mentioned. So these are the key priorities. So once these NGOs meet, so stand ready to help us to implement these priorities. So of course they will be allowed to come to Uzbekistan and resume their operation.
Very good. Thank you so much, Mr. Ambassador. There are a lot of other questions, so I'm not sure we will have time to ask all of them before moving to the other element, especially the current COVID-19 crisis. But very briefly, I wanted to give you some of, 3 questions, and if you could maybe very briefly answer to them. We had several questions about the relationship to Afghanistan and how Uzbekistan is seeing the Shanghai Cooperation Organization role into integrating better Afghanistan and helping the country to stabilize. We had question about the relationship with Turkmenistan, especially cooperation in the energy sector. And we had question about what are the plans of the government for RLC development. So RLC development, relation with Turkmenistan, and Uzbek vision of the SCO role in Afghanistan. If you could briefly touch this question would be great. And then after that, I propose we move to the pandemic issues.
Mm-hmm. So with respect to Afghanistan, so as I had mentioned in my opening remarks, so the current administration has significantly revised its approach to this country. So now, as I have noted, so we perceive Afghanistan as an unalienable part of the entire region of Central Asia. So and you know well, so since again since the president took his office, so our presidents have met 7 or 8 times over the last three and a half years. So never seen before. Again, it demonstrates how we perceive the current situation in Uzbekistan, and that's the reason why Uzbekistani government is deeply involved in the reconciliation process in neighboring Afghanistan. So you know over the last 2 years, we've been hosting the representatives of the movement of Taliban in Uzbekistan twice, if I'm not mistaken. So our governmental officials are traveling a lot to Afghanistan, back and forth, discussing current trade and investments issues. So and you know as a result, so the volumes of bilateral trade are increasing day by day. So and both presidents have instructed their governments to increase this number up to $1.5 billion in the years to come. So by this means, of course, so again, our goal is that we would like to achieve is very simple and clear. To reach out the nearest seaports using the Afghanistan territory, to decrease the costs that the Uzbekistani commodities are suffering from, again, from transportation expenditures nowadays. So that is our goal. So with respect to the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and its involvement into the Afghan issues, you know. As a person who has been dealing with this organization, so during my past capacity, I know that there was so-called 6+2 or 6+3 so-called contact group meeting that that has been deeply involved in the discussions over Afghanistan. So you know, such groups, such engagements that we are seeing a lot among other international, both international and regional organizations, so could be also welcomed. So any approach or steps towards resuming the Afghanistan economy, towards bringing long-term peace and stability in Afghanistan, of course, meet the Uzbekistani foreign policy. So with respect to Turkmenistan, so you know, Turkmenistan was the first country that was visited by the president of Uzbekistan right after he took his office. And right after the elections. So by this means, so we again underscored how Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan relations are so important to us. So nowadays, Turkmenistan, being a part of all Central Asian engagements, is very much supportive to the endeavors by the current administration of Uzbekistan. In particular, so the second presidential summit that took place in Tashkent last year, so was again for the first time was joined by the president of Turkmenistan, and we, of course, we salute this approach of our neighbor to be an integral part of current developments in the region. So with respect to RLC, you know well that the disaster in that part of Uzbekistan has already affected not only the Karakalpakstan or Khwarezm regions of Uzbekistan, but of course neighboring Kazakhstan and Turkmenistan. And of course, we are dealing together with all with all the impacts and consequences that these, in particular, these three nations in the region of Central Asia are facing in terms of, again, tackling the environmental, socio-economic challenges that we are facing too. So we are also closely working under the regional, so-called regional RLC fund that has been established in early of 90s. And again, if my mind doesn't change me, so the last summit of the RLC International Foundation Summit took place, namely in Ashgabat. So again, it shows how this country pays a key attention to these regional, I would say, global environmental disasters that all the nations of Central Asia are trying to tackle. Marlene, I can hear you.
I'm sorry. Thank you so much, Mr. Ambassador, for answering all these questions. There are several others coming, but I propose we move on, and would be interested. I will keep track of the question and hopefully can continue to ask them to you. But we would like now we would be interested in getting your feedback on what is happening around COVID-19 crisis and the second lockdown that the country is facing now. If you could give us an update. We already have several questions related to the pandemics in the chat box.
Sure, absolutely. So, Marlene, as you are well aware, so Uzbekistan was disrupted a hit by the COVID-19. So, and unfortunately, the measures have been taken by the government to stop the spread of the virus across the nation, across the country, as the president has outlined. So it didn't work. So in this regard, so from July 10th to August 1st, so we've introduced the second lockdown. So as daily cases skyrocketed from 70, 80 to almost 60. I'm sorry, 600. Patients infected by COVID-19. So and currently, whole the country is under quarantine and strict measures to keep the COVID spread. So currently, the total cases increased to about 18,000 and almost 100 deaths. So and this and now it is the number one issue all the government is tackling. So beside that, Marlene just wanted to mention that since the apex passed in late April, yes, if I'm not mistaken. Since that time, so we've introduced a wide range of measures aimed at reopening the economy, and in these terms, unfortunately, none of them, I mean, introducing so-called red, yellow, green zones across the nation, so it didn't work. And easing quarantine measures, bringing back about 70,000 of our citizens from abroad, also didn't work as we have anticipated at the beginning. And, you know, as a result, cases increased significantly, both among locals and newly arrived, almost 48 against 52%. And and we've understood that if we are not introducing tough quarantine now, the situation will worsen. So, and as I have mentioned, so that is the statistics I know. So, but at the same time, we do not yet have accurate data on asymptomatic carriers. So there may be 2 to 3 times more. If the situation worsens, for instance, and 500, 1,000, 15 or 1,500 or 2,000 patients are identified every day, then this will be a collapse. So, and the system will not be able to withstand such a stand. So, in this regard, so that was the main reason why we have taken decision to impose a second lockdown in the country. And again, no one knows when the August 1st expires. Perhaps this again quarantine period so might be extended as well. So with respect to challenges that the entire healthcare system so has faced it, you know well, and how it is difficult and so hard to tackle these challenges, and the claims and the complaints coming from the people so are so obvious and actually demonstrate so demonstrate the lack of capacity so within the country. But at the same time, so the current government, particularly the president himself, take it very, very seriously. So so we know well about the needs of the people, and just the latest updates that you have already read and seen, I believe, is mostly related to the decision to arrange a special charter flight to bring the ventilators that are so needed in Uzbekistan, with oxygen field equipments, and in this regard, the current government has already taken a decision so to supply these equipments as soon as possible, again just to meet the needs of the people of Uzbekistan that are still increasing.
Thank you so much for this general overview, Mr. Ambassador. There are several questions related to the situation in Uzbekistan now on COVID-19. One question that several people are asking, and that you mentioned, in fact, in your presentation, is about the lack of data and the issue of also transparency in collecting data. And so we have one question about what do we think the government is doing or should be doing in trying to create more kind of data collection in order to really be able to capture the size of the pandemics. And we had another question about what is happening in prisons. And we know that the government was discussing the possibility of declassifying some information on prisoners. And so one of the questions is about what about releasing some prisoners from prisons in the view of health issues and people getting infected by COVID-19 in prison. So if you could address these two very specific and quite difficult questions, it would be wonderful.
Marla, thank you for this question. So with respect to the data on COVID-19. So first of all, just wanted to reiterate that the current government is not hiding the data that actually shows the current situation in Uzbekistan. Again, in my understanding, the data that we are currently accumulating is mostly based on the number of patients that have been tested, that have been hospitalized, and even those people who are calling the ambulance to their home. And the combination of all these three dimensions actually are creating the data that is currently available to the public. So that is my first point. Again, there's no intent to hide or to leave behind the scene the data. Yes, there might be some mistakes in terms of calculating, again, with respect to asymptomatic carriers. So the problem that every single nation that is hit by COVID-19 is facing to nowadays across the globe. So with respect to prisons, Marlene, you know well, since late 2016, thousands of Uzbekistanis who have been charged with religious extremism and international terrorism crimes, so have been released. So most of them have been removed from so-called blacklists. And you know, third year in a row, so we see the president adopts his own pardoning decrees, pardoning hundreds of young male and female who have been sentenced to imprisonment. In particular, during the holidays, during the Independence Day, during the Constitution Day, or even on the eve of Eid. By the way, that is, so another Eid is approaching, hopefully, on July 31st. So we'll be celebrating this religious holiday across the nation. And we expect that another presidential decree on pardoning hundreds of convicted so will be issued as well. And another pardoning, another decree on pardoning the people who are jailed will be issued again as a tradition. So on the eve of September 1st, when we will be celebrating the Day of Independence of Uzbekistan.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Mr. Ambassador, we have only 5 minutes on the left from the official time, but I hope we can go a little bit over 12 p.m. for a few more minutes of discussion. As you can imagine, the list of questions is really very long. And we have, in fact, many questions that send us back to the discussion of Uzbekistan foreign policy. And so if you would agree, there are 2 questions that I think are really interesting for several of our audience members. One was going back to the situation in Afghanistan and the trilateral recent meetings that you mentioned between the US, Uzbekistan, and Afghanistan. And we were wondering what about the situation of Uzbek militant affiliated to Taliban that has been moving to northern Afghanistan and could pose a threat to Uzbekistan. We were wondering if this question of Uzbek militant affiliated to the Taliban has been discussed at these meetings, and how you see the threat. Do you have any kind of threat assessment on that question? And we had also something that would bring us back to the C5+1 initiative about Uzbekistan position on adding Azerbaijan as a member of the C5+1 initiative. So that's the 2 questions that I would still like to ask you, and then we will see how much time remains after that.
So with respect to trilateral summit, so the platform that has been set up recently, just a few months ago, so within the framework of our bilateral political consultations with the Department of State. So, and the issues that was discussed between the Foreign Minister and Ambassador Wells, so during their meeting in Germany, if my mind doesn't change me. So since that time, so last month, so the inaugural trilateral summit took place. That was joined by the Foreign Minister of Afghanistan, so Under Secretary Hale, and of course Foreign Minister of Uzbekistan, Abdulaziz Kamilov. So, and we've agreed on setting up so several working groups that will be dealing with economic issues, so security dimension, so go separately, and of course political dimension that we have outlined in the joint statement that was issued recently. So with respect to the economic working group that I have mentioned in my opening remarks and took place yesterday early in the morning, so I should note that so the discussions, trilateral discussions, went extremely well. So were very target-oriented, with some even tangible outcomes. So a wide range of issues so have been touched upon by all involved parties. Again, starting from easing barriers to trade and allowing the companies, I mean, that are promoting their own goods towards Europe through Uzbekistan, of course, the products that we are exporting to South Asia using nearing seaports in neighboring Pakistan, Iran. So in these terms, these were the main topics that our delegations have been discussing. Besides that, agriculture came so in other priorities that in particular that the Ag Minister of Uzbekistan, along with their counterpart in Afghanistan, so have focused on. So beside that, we've been discussing the agreements on the customs affairs. So another topic that is meant for lifting barriers at the border and even again simplifying the entire procedure when the commodities are crossing the Uzbekistan-Afghanistan border. So in these terms, so we've agreed to draft a special action plan on all the arrangements that have been achieved within the framework of this working group meeting. And hopefully we'll be able to move forward further. So another working group on political issues is scheduled for the fall. Hopefully we'll be able to define the exact and the proper time to have this meeting as well. So with respect to C5+1 initiative and the you said Azerbaijan, yes?
Yes.
Yes, Azerbaijan. So at this moment, so I do not possess any data indicating that Azerbaijan so has requested both the U.S. government or any of Central Asian nations again seeking for any kind of its future engagement within the framework of C5+1 initiative. But once we get, of course, I will let you know. So that is my my point. Again, as a person who is overseeing and actually is responsible for everything related to C5+1 platform.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ambassador. We didn't have time to touch a lot on the US-Uzbekistan relationship, and it's already past 12 p.m. So I don't know if you would like to give us some kind of final remark briefly on how you see the development of the US-Uzbek partnership. But I think there are so many questions around that probably, if you would agree, it would be great to be able to have a second session specifically devoted to US-Uzbek relations, maybe sometime in the fall, because as you can see, the questions are so numerous and everybody is so grateful of the time you can give us. That probably a second session would be great, but I would like to give you the floor for some final remark, the one that you would consider the most important to make.
Marlene, I welcome the idea to arrange another session related to US-Uzbekistan partnership and its current state, where we are now, and what are the key goals that we are currently pursuing to achieve. But in a few words, so just wanted to describe the current developments in the US-Uzbekistan relations. So we are very much grateful to the US government for supporting Uzbekistan's sovereignty, independence, and its territorial integrity. So you know, there is nothing we value more than our independence. And for us, it's vitally important to have this endorsement by the US government. So with respect to current reforms taking place in Uzbekistan, so the US government remains very much supportive for what we are very appreciative, and of course, you know, with respect to technical assistance, financial technical assistance that has been provided over the last 3.5 years. So we are eyewitnessing the growth of this assistance, and of course the scope that is getting wider and wider. Just one example that has never seen before. So last year, so the US government has taken this, and again, has taken decision to send at least 3 advisors, so Americans who will be deployed at the finance ministry, at the tax committee, and at the capital market development agency. So the people who will be assisting the current government to implement its reforms, its further reforms on liberalizing the economy. So we are also very much grateful for the support by the US government of Uzbekistan's intent to be a part of WTO. So one of the most utmost priority of the current government. Another pillar that we have identified as a key in our in our bilateral relations is mostly related to regional stability and security. So combating terrorism or violent extremism in the region of Central Asia that shares common border with Afghanistan, so has been defined as a priority that we are still working on. And with respect to our bilaterals that are focused on ensuring rule of law, so today. So we have mentioned the NGO registration issues that we perceive as an important, vitally important contribution to ongoing reforms. And in this regard, so respect for the rule of law, human rights, and fundamental freedoms have long been a foundation of US-Uzbekistan relations. So we are even on in this matter. So we are closely working. So we and in this regard, I have to know that the US government remains very, very much responsive to all our needs in terms of, again, getting the expertise and bringing more technical assistance and people who will be supportive to implement all these reforms. And the last point is mostly about people-to-people ties that we have identified as another key priority in our bilaterals. And I'm talking about the education, talking about sister-city ties that we are currently expanding. And even in this matter, so the US government's assistance remains very, very significant. $50 million that have been allocated by the US government to tackle the challenges in the public education. So in this regard, I would also like to mention how education is so important in our bilateral agenda. In particular, so we are currently, so we have started, I mean, the embassy has started working closely with the Peace Corps. So we would like to bring the Peace Corps volunteers to Uzbekistan to help the people of Uzbekistan to learn English. So we would like actually to resume previously ceased operation of the Peace Corps in in my country. So these are the key dimensions that we are currently involved in. So with respect to so-called sensitive issues that we used to have during the ups and downs in our relations. So I should note that so at this moment, so we have already removed all these issues from our bilateral agenda. So currently we are mostly focused on how the US government could be so much supportive to ongoing reforms and change taking place in Uzbekistan. Again, Marlene, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to share these current developments in Uzbekistan, some updates with respect to bilateral relations with the United States government. And I'm very much looking forward to participating at another separate session on US-Uzbekistan relations. Again, thank you so much to you and all our guests who have been able to join today's video conference call. Please so keep staying sound and healthy. Take care.
Thank you so much, Your Excellencies. We are really grateful so much for you spending time with us and accepting to answer the question and giving us all these updates. And we're very much looking forward to a new round of discussion. And we wish you also all the best and all the best to Uzbekistan now with the second lockdown, in hoping everything will go well and smooth. So once again, thank you so much from the Central Asia program and all our participants. Everybody enjoy very much this kind of discussion, and we hope to continue it in the fall. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.